I have confirmation of quorum. So I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have a mover?
So moved.
So if I can, sorry, just to interrupt. So we've been using the practice of using the chat, everyone, for moving, seconding, and voting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a motion to move by Director Davis. Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Joe?
There's Michelle. Good.
Okay. All in favor? Hearing nothing, carry on. Adoption of public agenda. Moved. Second. Opposed? Joe? No petitioning delegations. Adoption of the previous meeting minutes. Mover? Second. Joe? Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, all opposed? Joe? Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Chair's report. I have nothing to report at this time. Under staff reports, proposed grants and aid, financial assistance. Motion to receive. Second. Okay, all in favor. Anything on staff?
So just Mr. Chair, the board has instructed that we draft a grants and aid policy, financial assistance to organizations, and bring it to electoral area services, municipal services, and Strathcona Gardens for comment. So what I did was reached out to basically all the other RDs out there and took a look at their grant and aid policies, and kind of there was a lot of consistency within those, and compiled a draft for you to look at and comment. So if you want, maybe the easiest thing is if folks have comments about individual lines, if via electronically, it might be easier if we go through one by one, and if anyone has an issue with them or comments, we can maybe go through that. So, and I think the intention is that what we're going to do is bring the comments and recommendations from municipal services, the gardens, and to the board, and see if there's any way we can consolidate this policy that works for everybody. Huh?
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but I don't think my chat is working. I've tried to type a couple of times that I have either seconded or comments, and it doesn't seem to show up. So I'm not sure what's happening there.
Okay, so
It's working.
Oh, I don't see it on my chat then. Sorry, it doesn't show up on my chat that my comment. Okay.
I'm just being clear. It's working that you can't chat.
Well, thanks. And you're in a mood today, I can see.
Yeah, yeah, it isn't showing up, Claire. You're right.
I'll try my other iPad and
Director
see if it
Adams.
works on that one. Okay, so I do have some comments on this one, so I'll wait my turn.
okay, thank you. Director Adams.
Thank you. Just wondering on staff as to how the $1,000 number was determined, and did you have any thoughts as to putting that up to 2,000 or 2,500, or just how did the recommendation come to be?
Okay, so the $1,000 basically came from just polling other regional district policies, and I talked to several folks too, and here again is just some of the theory behind that. That is, let's say it was 5,000. The kind of the common thought about that was, if you're gonna have these policy with a significant number, then maybe you have a service in there. So I'm not saying 1,000 is the ideal number, but it wasn't. The reason it isn't a high number is because if folks come every year, and we've had a number of them in electoral area services that want $5,000 or $7,000 a year every year, then that looks more like a service than an annual grant and aid. So not married to $1,000, but it probably shouldn't be a large number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can I suggest then we just go in general line by line? Number one, financial assistance will only be considered. Is there any comments there?
Sorry,
Director Babcock,
My
you had a
turn.
comment?
so my chat's still not working.
No, it's
give me a
not.
second. So which line are we on?
We're just going number one. I think he's looking at, so Tom's keeping it, if your chat's not working, just let's maybe follow through with the scroll and Tom will keep it fairly consistent. So number one, will it be considered only for registered nonprofit organizations?
Thanks. So I did have a comment on that one. So I do agree with the concept, but I think that the language maybe should be tightened up. And what I mean by that is, what does that really mean? Does that mean it has to be a registered charity that's registered with CRA? And many other organizations that do granting have that language in their bylaws, i.e. that it has to be a registered charity, but they also have the provision that a society that is not a registered charity can apply in partnership with that registered charity. And that broadens the ability for organizations to apply if they're not a registered charity, but they are a nonprofit in the community. So there's two issues here for me. One is that making sure that everyone understands what it means, but also being able to broaden it somewhat, as long as there is that accountability through being a registered charity as the primary applicant.
So if I can, Mr. Chair, just make a comment on that. So again, this is a policy of the board. So we can do a couple things. We can tighten it up, if you will, but policies are the board's under their authority to amend them if they will. So what we've added here is, registered nonprofit. And as you've alluded to, is there's maybe a little more depth to that where they have to be registered with CRA. So that can be discretion for the board when they come, or we can expand on that language, whatever the board's will is.
Thanks. Just on that point, just talking, my preliminary thought is that we should be making the policies as tight as we can, so there is less room for discretion, because the less interpretation one has to do at the time, the better. That way everybody knows what the actual parameters are. I think we have run into trouble in the past where our policy could have been worded perhaps more tightly, so that we don't get into this issue of what does it really mean. So I'm more in favor of tightening it up, but I will, it's not a hill to die on for sure.
Okay.
Michelle.
Thank you. So my point around this is process and what we are looking for today. So are we actually looking for amendments to this for staff, or are we looking for staff to amend and bring this back?
Well, if I may, Madam, Mr. Chair, I think also using the technology we have here, that I would suggest, because we're consolidating from what we get from the gardens and east, is that we're making notes. And I don't know, I'd humbly suggest that Director Moglove, if anyone opposes tightening up, they say, hey, no, don't do that. Otherwise, we can easily take notes on some of these comments. And we're going to consolidate this thing. And if it isn't consolidated the way you like it, you'll certainly see it at the board at some point. So I'm fine making notes on it, because that seemed the way it came out of Strathcona Gardens. We had a lot of comments, we made a lot of notes, and we're thinking in terms of consolidating that. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
So the committee, by saying no, just tighten it up a little bit or carry on?
yeah, I would say, like, if anyone opposes Claire's comments, maybe that they, in the chat type opposed, and if 10 people say they oppose, then we'll leave it as is.
Okay, I don't see anything. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. Before a request of financial assistance may be considered, the applicant must provide the following. Any discussion there?
Again, my chat's not working, sorry. So I did have a
That's fine.
comment on one. It's
Yeah,
on
go ahead.
number A. Again, it's just a question of tightening it up. What does recent mean? Does that mean last year's, 2 years, 5 years? Again, I think it's important that that any group that applies knows what they have to do. So I would tighten up the word recent. So if it's 1 year or is it 2 years? What does that mean?
Okay, that's an easy one.
Yeah, thank you.
So something like that, recent be, the last two financial years or something like that.
We'll come up with something again.
Okay.
You're going to get a consolidated version, and if I, let's say, wrote 2 years and the board doesn't like that, an easy amendment to make. So I just say, well, we'll take some notes unless everyone opposes what the comments are, and I'll bring something back to the board.
Okay, anything else on bullet number 1?
2. Oh, bullet number 1, sorry.
Yeah, bullet 2, details regarding specific uses. I don't see anything. Nothing on the next bullet. And the 4th bullet. Seeing nothing.
It's not scrolling on mine, so I haven't seen,
Okay.
it's not on my screen.
No, it's on there.
The fourth bullet is a written statement indicating.
Sorry, I was.
Okay, that's fine. Nothing there. Okay, we'll move on, Tom. Number 3.
You went too high.
There you go. Applicants for financial assistance must be submitted directly to the financial officer for the RD.
I wouldn't mind making a comment on this, Mr. Chair, before there's any discussion.
Okay,
Currently, no, it's a little bit different for regional. As regional, we get them submitted to corporate. A foundation, Campbell River Foundation, they submit it to us. The EA ones, they come directly to the directors, and that is very unique to the SRD. Most requests, well, all requests that I've found in other regional districts is the grant requests come to corporate and they're brought to the appropriate committee. We only see the requests that the EA directors support. So I've never seen one that is rejected. So we are quite unique in having any grants and aid go directly to a director. So that's the impetus of this, is that whether you're an EA, come from Muni, or somebody comes up to the mayor of Gold River and says, hey, I might have something here, the mayor would say, well, send it to corporate at the SRD and it'll be brought to the appropriate committee.
okay, thank you. Discussion? Okay, seeing nothing. Item number 4. In addition to the other matters outlined in policy, the board will give preference to the funding requests. Bullet 1. I don't see anything. Bullet 2.
So Director Adams had something on there about the limit. It's, does $1,000 seem appropriate? Does that number want to be higher?
Okay, I've got Director Babcock.
Thank you, Chair. I have a problem with this one as well, just because $1,000 doesn't go very far. So if we've got electoral areas that are looking to fund a soccer team or a hockey team or something that's going somewhere because they have performed well, that's not going to go far at all. So I certainly understand the ongoing funds, but I don't have a problem with this one. And I would suggest that it would be, I would suggest that on a one-time basis, which is what this policy is looking at, that number becomes, I would even suggest as high as $5,000.
Okay, if I can make a comment there, I agree. There's some challenges, like this afternoon, for example, that we have a request for a number substantially higher. And we all know, like, that's, these aren't ongoing requests for operational money. So having heard this, the challenges that this provides is that if a community foundation comes and says, hey, we want $20,000, it would get bumped from there. So if the committee is okay, I can think of some language. So Director Adams, you even says 2,500. So I'm trying to think about the challenges, though, that if we have a regional request, as like say we are today for 20, 30,000, how does that fit into there? And I think we probably need some language that would allow something that isn't, like an annual request. So if somebody came to us and asked for $25,000 every year for the same thing, it's like, okay, let's create a service. But if they're one-offs, that the committee should have some discretion, and the number needs to be higher than that. So it was put in again as a defense mechanism to not give the same group 10,000 a year for the same thing year after year. So maybe we should revisit that and come up with some wording that addresses, how a foundation that say would come to us with request even in excess of 2,500.
Okay, I got Director Adams, a couple comments there. He suggests up to a max of $2,500.
I'd like to put that as an amendment motion. I'd move that.
Okay, do I have a seconder? I have a seconder by Director Davis. Any more discussion on that?
Director Moblove here. Sorry, again, my
Yep.
chat's not working.
That's fine, Claire.
I understand where Director Adams is coming from, and also agree with the comments from Director Babcock and Andy. But I'm wondering whether it still wouldn't cover off the situation that is coming before the board later. And I'm wondering whether it, at this point, maybe makes more sense just to wait to see what staff come up with. I think Mr. Leach has heard the concerns that many of the directors have with this particular bullet, and there may be some way to word it in such a way that we can cover off more. So I don't disagree with the concept, but I may be premature for the amendment.
Okay. Director Babcock.
Thank you. I actually don't have a problem with it increasing, because I think what I'm hearing from everybody around the table right now is that the $1,000 is just way too low. So if we go up to 2,500 and staff come back with some wording around that, I don't think it hurts. So I'm quite willing to support the amendment.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can do that. I think, yeah, if we change the principle of thinking in terms of annual requests for the same thing over and over again, I think it's fair comment for the 2,500. And I also think we need some language in there to address, one-offs that come with requests that are more than, and we have historically, almost annually, we have somebody come and ask for more money than that as a one-time thing. So I think we do need a little language to address, to give opportunity to those.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so those opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to bullet number 3, demonstrate broad support. Any discussion? Anything else on item number 4 then? Okay, nothing? Move on to number 5.
I had something on that one. Sorry, Brad.
Okay, go ahead.
I raised this at the board meeting when this first came up, and I just wanted to hear from staff the use of the word significant risk or liability. It's so subjective, or like that's the other thing that sort of concerned me as to how do you judge that? Would that be like, say a grant request came in and staff felt there was some risk or liability, that would be in the report? Yeah, again, just concerned about the broad language.
Yeah, so it had to put something in there because everything has some level of risk. And the intent there was that we would vet that level of risk and bring it forward in the report.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Director Kerr? Director Kerr, what is the source of funding on all these grants?
It would depend. I was going to make comment to that later, but we don't have a regional grant and aid service. So what we're doing when these one-offs come to us, we are funding them through general government, and we're finding room or slack within that budget. But I think because it happens annually and it happens generally more than once, that the board needs to visit having a regional grant function. And my humble opinion is that I think that the muni should lower their own funding sources in their own municipalities for these grants, and whatever that is, and push a percentage of that money to the regional district and make these groups come to the regional district for funding. Once you're not double dipping, double paying on this stuff, there's a regional benefit to almost everyone. And we could use kind of a benchmark line item to draw from. So right now we don't, right? So we're just trying to find room and a little bit of slack within general government. That's where it's coming from, but we don't have a budgeted line item for annual regional grants.
Okay, so then Director Kerr is asking, so is this the only 4 municipal grant requests?
Yeah, so let's say the policy goes on to speak to if a request comes in for in an EA specifically for that EA, then that request would go there. If it came in for the gardens, it would go there, and if it was for a regional request, it would come to municipal services.
Okay, Director Babcock? Michelle, you there?
She must be muted, I guess.
Michelle, you muted?
Oh, I am muted, and I talked so eloquently too. Holy smoke. Okay, so yeah, I think that's what Director Kerr is getting at. This policy is not just for our regional grant needs. This is an overarching policy to look at all of our grant needs, and that would just be directed to the correct committees. So this would overarch the EAs, this would overarch regional, and this would overarch the Strathcona Gardens Committee as well, should they have any.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, anything left on number 4? Okay, let's do on to number 5. Board may require any organizational for financial assistance be awarded. Comments? Nothing? Number 6, financial assistance will be provided for the following.
Will not be provided.
Sorry, will not be provided. Comments? Don't see anything?
I had a comment on this
Okay.
one.
Go ahead, Claire.
Generally speaking, I agree with the concept in normal times, but I'm wondering whether our view of this would change during this COVID-19 situation. So for instance, if there's an organization whose donations have run dry for one reason or another, then they can't pay their rent, their lease, but in time, would we want to be able to have the ability to assist those organizations? So I know we're in extraordinary times and not all policy can fit every situation, but I just sort of want to have maybe a brief comment from staff on that, or from other directors as to whether emergency situations like we're currently facing would change number 6.
Go to staff first.
Okay, well, my comment is you kind of answered it. I think you're writing policy for, 99% of the time, which the board always has the ability to, supersede its policy or amend it. So my comment would be to not write it for extraordinary times, but during extraordinary times, we obviously can change the rules of our policy.
Okay, thank you. That's sort of what I was thinking, but I just wanted to raise it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Director Bowles. Anything else, directors? Seeing none, move on to item 7. Request for financial assistance would provide a benefit only within one or more electoral area. Questions?
So just again, 7, 8, and 9, if the requests are going to come into corporate, then we would vet, where the benefit of that assistance would come from, and we would direct it to the appropriate committee.
Okay. Any comments? Questions? So that really takes care of 7, 8, and 9, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, item 10. No questions? Okay.
So if I can, I'll just raise to the committee what there was some discussion on this before, and I don't know if it's an issue for anyone or not, but if somebody makes a request for, let's say, $500, maybe that they don't have the ability to produce a report or an audited statement, and that may be deemed as a little bit of overkill. But that was a comment we heard, and I think it's valid. But if the committee thinks that's worth looking at, because we don't want to be, we want people to be accountable, but we don't want it to be too onerous.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Babcock.
Thank you. I actually do have a little bit of a problem with the audited statement. I certainly don't mind the production of some sort of financial report, but I do believe that those audited statements, especially when you are looking at the electoral areas and or some of the Strathcona Gardens, when you're looking at maybe helping assist, a minor hockey team or a lacrosse team or something, those become extremely onerous. So I don't particularly like the audited statement.
Yeah, I think we can certainly soften it up to that some kind of written report, that isn't going to cost anybody money, and somebody can provide a summary of what they've done to the board. Is when you're looking at some of these mom and pop kettle operations that they're not going to get an audited report. So I can certainly soften that up with considering those small groups in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Further to that, Chair, the objective of this is to make sure that the money that we're giving them is going to the place that they asked for it. So, like I said, I think we can achieve that by some sort of other financial report or written statement, other than actually having to make them go and pay money to get an audited statement.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And just for Director Kerr concurs that audited statements are an overkill.
Yeah.
So I think the staff have got the thoughts there. Anybody else?
Actually, I agree that the audit statements are not, I don't think that's necessary. A written report at the end of the project or program, I think absolutely is in order. And I'm wondering if any thought was given to a time frame for that, i.e., year end or whatever. And also whether any thought was given to, because we do have a lot of organizations that apply year after year, whether a future grant application would not be entertained unless a written report of the past one was received. Again, I'm just taking this from other organizations that I'm involved with, that's a requirement.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That we can make a note of that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing nothing. Questions? Directors?
I'm sorry, Chair, you cut out for me.
I'm
Narrow
looking
it down.
for, yep, direction from the directors on the recommendation. So we moved the report to the CO has been received.
Mhm.
That's been carried. And the other recommendation is policy CP 025, financial assistance organization be approved, and the policy entitled grants and aids approved for the board of directors for the Comox Regional District on December 11th, 1997 be rescinded. I've got a mover by Director Adams and a seconder Director Babcock. Any other discussion?
I thought all we're doing today is receiving this at this meeting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's all we should likely do because again, it's a, I apologize for the recommendations
Okay.
that I think we should just receive it. We have the notes because we have two other committees and then consolidate that and bring to the board and try and get the board as a whole to approve it. So I would prefer just receiving it.
Okay. Director's okay with that? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Anybody opposed? Carried.
Just wait, I wasn't sure what Andy was opposed to, or he said no.
Well, I was just going to comment in that as this is only municipal services, why would we not approve it knowing that the electoral area would do that and the ultimate decision would be at the board?
Well, I think because we're looking at one policy, we're not going to have three policies. So if we were going to independently have a policy for municipal, EA, and the gardens, but I believe the attempt is to have one policy.
Agreed. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on. Director Babcock.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering at this time if it would be a good idea and direction to staff if we were to have comments on or put a motion forward regarding the development of a regional grant and aid function.
Seal.
So I personally think that's a good idea. I know, I don't know Campbell River's individual philosophy, but I know frequently they get requests and then they come here, and it is a double dip. And I don't know how, if you looked at overall, just use Campbell River as an example, if you looked at overall all the requests you get, what percentage of them would have a regional benefit to them? I would guess a significant amount. And we have a formula for sharing costs regionally, and I think it would be appropriate that we create a function for regional grants, that the request came here and then they stop coming to the individual munis, because what people do when they want money, they just fan out to everyone, and it's really unlikely that they understand, let's say, the financial relationship Campbell River has with here. And so I would suggest, what you could do is, if we established a regional grant and aid, you could redirect a portion of the funding. So let's say Campbell River, I'm just making this up, budgeted, $250,000 a year for, these grants that had a high regional flavor to them, that you would say, hey, look, I'm going to lower that by, 200,000, and I'm going to fund the regional district by 150,000. It could funnel the requests that are regional to here, and it long-term stop you from getting multiple requests and reduce your financial impact to these groups as well. That's my opinion.
Discussion? Okay, seeing nothing.
Director Adams?
Director Adams?
Thank you. Certainly appreciate the comments from Mr. Leach. However, having been on the Strathcona Regional District Board for a number of years and understanding the workings of it, while there is a double dip on these for the city of Campbell River, who is paying 100% for the grants that are coming from the city, and the majority of the share for any potential grants awarded from the regional district. I would just, well, it's a good idea when everything is working well. I'm not confident that that's the case at the board level.
So yeah, I know where you're coming from.
I'm trying to be diplomatic.
No, I get it.
Very good.
I would say I totally understand that stuff, and I would hope that maybe we can get a motion of a report, because I think there's a opportunity to kind of alleviate some of those challenges there. That, you know, I have a lot of thoughts and ideas on it, and you know, a report's not going to hurt anything, and I totally get where you're coming from.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Do we have any direction from directors? Would you like a report?
Michelle, do you have a motion, or?
Michelle, are you muted?
Oh, there I go. Yeah, I don't think it hurts to get a report. I don't disagree with Director Adams on this one, but I don't think it hurts to have a report. So I will move that we direct staff to do a report regarding a regional grant and aid function.
I have a seconder. I got a seconder by Director Davis. Any other discussion on it? All those opposed? It's carried.
Thank you.
Anything else under staff reports?
None from staff.
Okay. In bylaws, we have nothing. Correspondence, we have nothing. Anything on directors' reports? We have no new business. No agenda items. We have nothing close, so motion to terminate. Moved by Director Davis, seconder. Second by Director Adams. All those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.